Hey folks, Jackdaw here with a very exciting brand new Dragon Age Dreadwolf news update. The BioWare blog has just released a comprehensive article on one of the most exciting parts of Dreadwolf's development, that being the writing and storytelling process. We've got developer interviews to examine, brand new in-game codices to break down, and plenty of narrative insights to explore. As a writer myself, I'm very thrilled about this update, so let's just dive straight into these brand new codices and then we'll get to that blog just after. Like I said, we have 3 in-game codices that BioWare have shared on their new blog. The first one we're going to go over regards misconceptions about the Grand Necropolis in Navara. The Codex itself is written by a particular Navaran Mortalatasi who kind of throws a little bit of shade at Brother Genetivi's writings on the practices of the Grand Necropolis. The Codex states as follows: "No one has more respect for Brother Genetivi's scholarship than I, but his writing on Navara details very little of the practices of the Grand Necropolis. The more I travel, the more I'm convinced these elisions have led to unfortunate conclusions by people of less than generous imagination. For example, we do not lock up our dead to pound fruitlessly against their coffins in the dark. Our departed lie in peaceful state, or even wonder. The undead tableau are loving constructions, not dress up with corpses. And in the event a melon spirit causes a disturbance, we don't simply throw them in a tomb and toss the key. Sometimes I think blank crafts these questions to tease me." From Blank's diary. First of all, I love the way this codex refines the established lore of Thedas as found in previous games. It helps codify previous misconceptions of the Grand Necropolis. Instead of Brother Genetivi's findings being accepted as the absolute truth, it would seem his findings act as merely one account. And this adds a lot of depth to the world while also revealing previously unknown details. It's already so fascinating, and it's just one codex. We also need to figure out who in-game wrote this codex. Well, considering the actual codex was written by Sylvia Fekete, and she has very recently worked on Down Among the Dead Men in Winter Nights and The Flame Eternal on Dragon Age Day, which are both 2 stories that focus directly on the Mortalatasi in their Grand Necropolis, we now have quite a few characters that this journal could belong to, like Audric, Myrna, Emmerich, and Joanna. If we zoom in on this scribbled name in the codex, I feel like at the end there we can see a H, and therefore this codex could belong to Emmerich. If you've read The Flame Eternal, or if you have watched my own analysis of it in my Analysing the Dragon Age Day short stories so far, I would say that this journal belonging to Emmerich would be a fair assessment given Emmerich's demeanour in that story. For those who haven't read The Flame Eternal, Emmerich Volkaren is essentially a Mortalatasi necromancer alongside Joanna Herzenzos. Both of them worked together in the Cobalt Ossuary of the Grand Necropolis, as they negotiated with a wailing demon down in the Crescent Vein of the Necropolis. It's a really fun, witty story, so I would highly recommend checking it out for yourself, or again watching my full breakdown of the story. So, if this is Emmerich, what about the other name that has also been scribbled out? Well, like I just said, Emmerich works very closely with Joanna, at least in The Flame Eternal, so this could also be her. But I feel like the name in this codex may be slightly too long to be Joanna, and if so, it could be someone else entirely, probably somebody new, somebody we don't even know. Even so, I found this codex incredibly exciting. I am all here for brand new Navara, Mortalatasi, and Grand Necropolis lore. Give me all of that dark, gothic fantasy stuff, please. I'm just so excited to see this stuff. Following that codex, we have a new quarterly missive from the Randy Dowager herself, one of Dragon Age's returning characters via codices. Add the Randy Dowager to the returning characters list. The actual codex itself was written by Lucas Christiansen, and as follows: a sadly pristine and unread quarterly missive of suspect virtue. The Randy Dowager welcomes both season and heat by reprinting their nightly needs, being a wartime tale of lines crossed, blows traded, and love's promise to bridge any separation with cunning intent. A timely tale of tensions relieved by soldiers coming together. The Randy Dowager, exhibitions for the noble of thought, but spry of step. The lady herself says, historically questionable, but one does prefer the relief of a happy ending. For those who shy from politics, but little else. 3 scarves fluttered in shock out of 5, signed RD. I love to read these in Dragon Age, they just add a little bit of context to the game. There's not really much to actually tear apart and dissect, but it is really fun reading them nonetheless. Now the third and final codex revealed by BioWare is a new entry by an unknown scholar in-game as they examine a new type of dragon known as a Vinsummer. The actual codex was written by Patrick Weeks as follows: appearance, dark back and light underbelly. She's hard to see when underwater, like those whales. Diet, squid or those big worms that bury near the shore. Uses her lightning to stun prey. Jaws are more like a beak. Good to grip squishy stuff or crack shells. I think the lightning also helps her see down in the deep water. She does little crackles before she strikes. Behavior, she's hunting more than she needs. She's also not attacking blank, unless they get close to her lair. Then she kills them fast. I think she has dragonlings. Must be trying to keep them fed and not look for fights. Only reason a dragon stays that quiet is to protect her kids. It's super interesting to hear of what seems to be a new type of dragon, that being a sea lightning dragon. Perhaps we pick up this codex close to the dragon's whereabouts, maybe near a sea or an ocean off the coast of Tevinter, or perhaps we actually unlock this codex once we have killed the dragon, which would mean an epic fight with an underwater dragon. However that would work. I assume it would potentially fly to the surface or something like that. But yes, we can expect more variations of dragons in Dragon Age Dreadwolf. The dragons are certainly aging. There's also a blank within the text here. It could refer to a group of people like hunters or a faction, but I feel like a dragon would probably instantly kill those. Therefore, I feel like it could be a creature instead. So that's all the 3 codexes explored so far. Very, very exciting stuff. In the past, I've heard from a few of the developers that writing codices is towards the end of the writing production, that once the bulk of the narrative is drafted, edited and all that stuff, they then begin to work on codices to ease off a bit and have a bit more fun. Not sure if that's indicative of Dragon Age Dreadwolf, but I know that was the case with Inquisition, so perhaps this is also a scale for Dragon Age Dreadwolf's development. Anyway, let's move on to this entire community update. As follows. So far, years of effort have gone into our next game, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, with hundreds of people working to bring this shared vision to life. We've been quietly building it behind the scenes for a while now, so we wanted to give you a look at some stuff we've been working on. But let's start with a little recap for those who might be new around here. Dragon Age is a series that puts you in the heart of a magical world. But what happens while you're there, who lives and who dies, who rises and who falls, who loves and who loses, that's up to you. There are no right choices, only those you make. At the heart of every one of our games are our stories and characters. Each tale is told by people who live in them, companions who fight at your side, and foes who challenge your every move. This is core to the experiences we craft and is what we believe makes a quote BioWare RPG what it is. Each character has their own motivations and goals that influence how the story plays out, but so do you. The hero of Ferelden, the champion of Kirkwall, the herald of Andraste. Each of them marked their own legacy in the annals of history, but time marches forward and the age of these heroes cannot last forever. As a friend of ours once said, it's time for a new hero. New protagonist obviously very much confirmed. Making a game that carries forth the stories that came before it while still being a starting point for someone brand new can be tough. Deep lore can seem daunting to new players, but it's also an exciting challenge. The development process is iterative and dynamic. Ideas get concepted, tested, thrown out, brought back, and changed constantly during early stages, all in the pursuit of getting things just right. And it's very collaborative too. Everyone helps each other to build something we hope will excite you. So let's talk about that. As we said, storytelling is at the core of what we do. Our writers helm the creation of your narrative, experiences, and work as part of a talented team with editors, producers, and quality verifiers to build out the story, characters, dialogue, and more. And that's not even getting into the other teams who work so closely with them to bring those tales to life. But what does working on the writing and editing team entail, and how are we going about writing for Dreadwolf? It's not like writing a book where everyone has the same experience on the page. Each player interacts with the team's work differently based on the choices they make, how much of the game they interact with, and the kind of character they want to play. Here's how our team is thinking about that. So now I've got an interview with Ryan Cormier and Sylvia Fekadakuti. Care to do us the honour of introducing yourselves and telling our community a little bit about what you do. Ryan Cormier said, "Hello, I'm one of the 3 narrative editors on Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Our job is to ensure BioWare stories are told with clarity, consistency, and accuracy. That might mean correcting comma splices in a Codex entry, deciding if a hero's dramatic speech carries on one line too long, reviewing plot lines, or helping a writer choose which scene to tweak without impacting the overall arc. Somewhere in between, we're spell checking some ridiculous long elven word or standardizing a character's voice. Sylvia Fekatakuti said, "Hi, I'm a senior writer on Dreadwolf. I wrote one of the Codex entries here, Misconceptions about the Necropolis, as well as the character who penned the entry. Therefore, again, Emmerich, Audric, Myrna, or Joanna. These codices are just a tiny snippet of the game, but we wanted to share them as a springboard for talking about writing and editing processes. Sometimes when I tell people I write for games, they politely try to figure out how to ask, but writing dialogue doesn't take up your entire day every day, does it? Truthfully, no. I'm responsible for coming up with plots, characters, and dialogue, but also for designing missions of our level designers. I work with them on pacing, information flow, and addressing many revisions as feedback comes in. We're also responsible for a lot of non-voiced text, Codex entries, notes on the world, item descriptions, weapon names, etc. A huge part of my job is just explaining the narrative needs of my characters and missions to other departments and coordinating it all with them. It sounds like you two do more than the average person might expect an editor or writer to do. How do you two work together then?" Sylvia said, "Way early on, during the concepting stages, the editing team gives their feedback with the rest of the narrative team on high level stuff, like the new characters, plot, and themes. Once first draft writing for a character or major mission is complete, we also have editors give us their formal feedback during our big peer reviews." Ryan said, "At this stage, as we near pre-production, editors talk with writers about big picture topics like characters, lore, and themes. These elements need the most time. Editing starts broadly and becomes detailed later in the process because it doesn't help a writer to hear this is a run-on sentence when we're still 5 drafts away from final. We save line edits for last. Until then, editors try to hold their tongues on grammar and punctuation." Sylvia said, "After the peer review, when revisions are done and we're in a position to start recording voice dialogue, I work more closely with the editing team. Editors will suggest better ways to make one sentence flow into the next, spot inconsistencies, and point out when I've written something nonsensical. Every editor also quote owns certain character voices, just like writers do, and I'll often go to them to hash out something for a particular character or to get a second opinion." And then Ryan said, "Here in the final drafts, no edit is too picky. This is where editors tweak the writing with changes to grammar, punctuation, and flow, and where the passive voice dies a swift death. We read lines aloud at our desks while examining lore, tone, voice, and other details that change how a line reads in the recording booth or appears in the subtitles. Voice recording notes and plot summaries are finalized too. All this fine-tuning involves close work between a writer and editor while they pass edits back and forth, fix this, change that, change it back, debate, agree, and finally send it off for recording and translation." So from the very beginning, our editors and writers are in the lockstep with each other. What about the rest of the devs and other teams? Ryan said, "Editors are the bridge between the writers and the out-of-studio partners like actors and localizers. Once final drafts are complete, our game dialogue is sent to our in-house performance team, voice actors and translators, all working in numerous languages. Editors work with those teams daily and are the troubleshooters when technical or cultural concerns arise. Sometimes an English joke just doesn't land in the localized copy, or maybe we learn that a name we choose for an idyllic village in Thedas has an inappropriate meaning in another language." Sylvia added, "One of the best Dragon Age Inquisition translator questions I ever saw was from a German translator who wanted to know what one character meant when he talked about dancers with tassels. I mentioned this above, but most of my cross-team work is keeping up communication. Does the audio team have all the context they need? Does character art know a plot point requires an alternate character outfit? People often compare narrative games to movies, but a lot of them are nothing like movies. Structurally speaking, RPGs the size of ours are more like a full season of a bizarrely non-linear television series with so many mutable moving parts." That definitely paints quite the picture. You mentioned your work on DI just then. What about on Dreadwolf? What's it like writing for the next game? A very good question that I'm eager to find out. Sylvia said, "It's been 8 years since our last Dragon Age came out. I've seen a lot of adults fondly reminiscing about how they played it as teens." Me. "Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been a balance of providing answers to long-standing questions for veteran fans or making a game that new players or someone who only played DI years ago can also get into. That is fantastic, and that is exactly what I, and I know many of us as hardcore fans, want to hear. That BioWare are adhering to hardcore fans and also casual fans too. Fantastic." Continuing, Ryan said, "Unlike the vast galaxies we explore in our other franchises, realizes Dreadwolf returns us to Fadis, where we can revisit friends, okay cool, and places that are familiar. Some fans haven't spent time with Dragon Age since the 2014 release of Inquisition, while others have read every comic and story published since. Yep, that's us. Others never played a Dragon Age game at all and have no idea who the bald guy is. Bracket, he's Solas. It's a varied audience, and development for Dreadwolf has included conversations about how the team can simultaneously reward our returning fans and welcome new ones. Sylvia added, there are other things of course, but we really can't get into that until the game comes out. Really appreciate that dedicated section there. Next question. Well, we'll see what the future holds then. If you were speaking to a fan, new or old, what would you tell them makes a Dragon Age game unique? Sylvia said, to me, BioWare has always carried the old school D&D legacy in its veins. I try to inject some of what I love about tabletop role-playing into my work. Bizarre encounters, prideful villains, adventurers thrust together, arcs with big stakes that retain a sense of playfulness or adventure. It's everything I've liked in the best fantasy tabletop games I've played. And Ryan said, for me, it's the characters. A Dragon Age story is full of heroes you want to visit a Kirkwall tavern with, or at a stylish Antivan party, traveling with friends whose witty banter makes the time fly by. Was that a brief tease to a potential stylish Antivan party in Dragon Age Dreadwolf? Because I do not believe we've been to a stylish Antivan party in previous Dragon Age games. Correct me if I am wrong. The greatest compliment fans give our characters is the years of art, cosplay and fanfiction that Dragon Age has inspired. There's a sincere connection between our audience and our creations, and a villain who makes people want to spit on the ground at the mention of their name even better. Personally, I'd rather give him a hug and maybe a nice cup of jasmine tea. It's soothing, even though he doesn't like it. I feel like it might relax him and calm him down a little bit. Though we can't yet show our community our characters acting in game, dialogue isn't our only option. What about the Codex entries? Is that something you can talk about? Ryan said, yes. Codex entries are viable because they provide information that might otherwise disrupt the flow of the game. For example, players might want details about the Grand Necropolis in Navara. They most certainly do. But characters shouldn't sound like tour guides. Before any writing, the narrative team discusses which entries are required and which aren't. It's crucial to properly time Codex unlocks of player progression. No one wants a dozen entries only 10 minutes into the game, but interested players shouldn't have to wait long to learn more about the people, places and concepts introduced. Does a Codex unlock when something's first mentioned? When a related character appears? Is the entry only required if they actually interact with said thing? Sylvia said, making all of our Codex entries in-world, i.e. letters, books, notes, etc., gives us ways to play with information. I chose the Misconceptions about the Necropolis Codex to show everyone because it was really fun to write. I wanted the in-game author to be frustrated with Brother Genetivi's portrayal of the Necropolis while also trying to deny the depth of his irritation with said world-famous scholar. It's a diary, yet we see the author still feels obligated to exercise a measure of decorum in his private writing. And the micro-revelation at the end is that it's something he knows in real life, not far off Genetivi, who is needling the poor guy about Navara's death rituals. Also, that confirms that the character Sylvia is talking about is a guy. So, Emmerich? She continued, it's fun to layer things like this, and players are savvy about those layers. They pick up and I think appreciate the characters coming through. It's also a collaborative creative process. My Necropolis Codex entry, like many others, was edited by Cameron Harris, another one of our editors. In this case, Cameron caught that I had set file information incorrectly and also adjusted the overall stylization for consistency. And that ends the developer interview. BioWare continued, we hope that you enjoyed this first discussion about how our writing and editing teams are thinking about Dreadwolf. Every step of the way, we're working together as a team, even in ways you might not imagine. From integrating written material into the engine itself, to our devs doing placeholder dialogue for characters. I would love to hear that. It's a process that evolves over time. BioWare showcased a beautiful community spotlight. I will not post a picture because I do not want to repost their incredible artwork, but please check out the blog in the description down below so you can check out these artists for yourself, give them a follow on their socials. And then BioWare ended the community update with a final paragraph all about design. As follows, every day the game gets one step closer to our next big development milestone. Very exciting. And one step closer to where it's going to be when you play it. That will be a tremendous day indeed. Sweetmaker honestly cannot wait to actually play Dragon Age Dreadwolf. But these changes don't just happen. They're being worked on by the teams of people shaping this next adventure for you, carrying the vision together on our road to launch. We want to keep showing you what we're up to, so let us know if you like what you're seeing. We have some fun stuff planned, so be sure to keep an eye out for any upcoming BioWare community updates, one of which will include a look at what our designers are working on. So gathering up all of the highlights of this, we've got the fact that Dragon Age Dreadwolf is going to be built for hardcore fans answering many long-time questions, as well as being as easy to understand as possible for new fans and casual fans of the series. We've got the fact that BioWare believe they are making a proper BioWare RPG like prior BioWare games. We've got the fact that we've got a new hero. Of course, we already know that, but again, just confirming that once more and reiterating it in this story. We discovered a lot about the writing and editing process here. I absolutely love the exploration and the detail they go into here. And of course, one of the biggest highlights of this was BioWare giving us the 3 codices right there with plenty of lore and tidbits to dissect. And I also found that it was really important to understand what a few of the developers think makes Dragon Age unique. For Sylvia, it's carrying that D&D legacy in its veins, and for Ryan, it's all about the characters. And also that mention of a stylish Antivan party. Are we going to see a stylish Antivan party in Dragon Age Dreadwolf? Please, can we attend such a party? That sounds fantastic. But all in all, I really enjoyed this article, especially because I would love to work in the games industry one day as a writer. Currently, I'm a content writer, so hearing all of this stuff and creating narrative in a game sense, loved all of it. Really appreciate BioWare giving us this level of detail, and I'm of course very excited to hear more. Let me know down below what you think of these articles. Again, like BioWare have reiterated, at some point we're going to see more about the next Dragon Age game this year. Of course, we have just seen some codices, but I still do believe a trailer could be on the horizon at the Game Awards. We don't have too long to wait at all. Let me know all of your thoughts down below, but until the next one, I have been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.